Today on Spotlight on the Arts, Phil Jones, a sculptor, and more. Welcome to JCTV Spotlight on the Arts, coming to you from the Missouri State Capitol of Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm your host, Rick J., with a special guest back with us today, Phil Jones of Jefferson City, Missouri. Mr. Jones, welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm truly excited to again turn the spotlight on you today.
It's always great to be back and active in the art scene in Jefferson City.
Yes, sir. You know, you were last with us on Spotlight on the Arts. That was show number 8. This is show number 46.
Wow.
So lots happened. That was October 4th, 2017. And so much has happened these past 35 months. So I'm going to ask you really first to bring us up to date on your interesting life. There's a couple things that I really want to bring up, not only your private life. I know you're proud of a couple of grandsons. You'll probably want to talk about those, but I believe I'll just turn it over to you in a couple of seconds. For those people that want to tune in and see show number 8, go to YouTube, JCTV, Spotlight on the Arts, show number 8, and you'll see a little bit more about the personal life 3 years ago with sculptor, Mr. Phil Jones. Well, Phil, the clock is ticking away already, so I'll now let you fill us in on all those interesting things that's happened the past 36 months since your last visit at the round table. First, please give the new viewers a look at how you became inspired to be a sculptor.
I started sculpting in 1973 at Jefferson City High School. Pat Jones was my art teacher, and she's the lady that changed my life. Oh, wow. She instilled a love of art. It was ceramics too. I wanted to do a bust in ceramics one, but she said, no, you got to learn the basics first. So the first day of ceramics two, I talked to my mom out of a styrofoam wig head.
Oh,
and I walk in with it under my arm, and she just looked at me and grinned. So I did the first piece that I ever did in 1973, and I've done several of them throughout my lifetime, and then when I hit my 60th birthday, I just started doing it all the time, and I keep busy with commissions. I do people and I do pet urns. Heck, I did a frog for your show.
Yes.
I did a turtle for the Celebrity.
Yes.
With Debbie Handler, and I keep busy with commissions. I'm now teaching art. I am teaching 5th grade through 12th grade kids. I'm teaching at Trinity Lutheran, and I'm teaching at Calvary Lutheran High School, and I'm having a ball lighting those kids up with art.
And that's here in Jefferson City, Missouri.
Yeah, that's here in Jefferson City. They're
Yes.
two private parochial schools.
Right. And you have 2 young grandsons that are keeping you busy.
Yeah, Wild and Matthew are with us a lot.
Excellent.
We are Wild's daycare, and he's my little buddy, and Maddie is 11, and he and I work on homework together and I do grandpa stuff with him, and they're incredible boys, and I love them a lot.
Right. Well, it shows too on Instagram and Twitter. Phil's always an extra wide smile, I noticed, when he's got those grandsons on his lap. Well, not to get off the subject of art, but you have been teaching now, and different commissions that you've taken on, which we're going to talk a lot about in the second segment. Not only showing a lot of those, but also what happens from the beginning of the A phase to the Z phase. So stay with us. There's going to be a lot more. Well, past shows or events that these past 35 minutes that stand out in your mind and heart. I know you've been different places with some of the major actors maybe, or musicians?
I would have to say the highlight, as far as kind of a show-like thing,
Yes.
was they didn't have the State Fair Art Show this year.
Right.
Last year, the year before, I was the artist in residence there, and I got to spend 5 days there sculpting with people in the upstairs gallery, and man, that was a gas.
Yes, I remember that.
That was so
And
much fun.
you seemed like you was sure in your element.
Well, I love art,
Yes.
and I love people.
Yes.
And I love to talk to people.
Oh, yes.
So it just had the best of everything.
Yes, I agree. Well, now, you started with, oh, and by the way, the Call for Nature's Art at the Ren Center is still scheduled for May and June of 2021. And Phil will surprise us with a piece, I'm sure, for that. Well, so that's more of a change. I've seen Phil over the last 3 years go from frogs and turtles, what have you, dogs, urns, what have you, up to some major items. So I have a question. What has really changed in your sculpture that you've completed? It looks like you've taken on major elements other than frogs and turtles. So,
Well, the word kind of gets out. There aren't a whole lot of us that do this. I mean, there's really 3 of us in the state that do what I do.
I see.
There's a gentleman in Roachport, there's a gentleman in Kansas City, and there's me.
Oh, excellent.
So one of the projects that I'm working on now is a kind of like a educational / textbook of my sculpting process with a lot of pictures, because it seems like arts are kind of, they come and they go, they come and they go, they come and they go.
Highs and lows.
And I'm not going to live forever.
Right.
And one of these days, maybe somebody will want to pick up a book. How can I do a sculpture? How is that done? And it'll be memorialized. And I've got a working title of it for Fingerprints in Clay.
Excellent. And this becomes, the shows become more or less a way for people in the future to tune in or make copies. So we try to share from the heart as much as possible for family, for friends, and now our worldwide viewers, thanks to YouTube. Well, now I think this is a good time. He not only is a sculptor and an instructor, but also he's a writer. And I think it'd be a good time to talk about a book that you've published. And you might give us a little look at that. It's called Monopoly.
This is my second book. I wrote one in 2009 called Beneath the Meniscus. It was a tutorial about how to do an aquarium successfully.
Oh, I see.
I had on my bucket list, and I'm 64 years old, so it's time to start clicking things off the bucket list before you're in the bucket.
All right.
So I wrote a spy novel. It's called Monopoly, The Persian Affair. And you can buy it anywhere that books are sold. I mean, it's available in hard copy, paperback, ebook, and even a audio book that Mike Downey at the radio station here at Lincoln University actually read and narrated.
Oh, excellent.
So if you like intrigue, there's some economic stuff in it. There's a love story in it even. There's something there for everybody. And you can buy it virtually everywhere. Amazon, Find Your Way Voices. You can buy it anywhere. Barnes and Noble, everywhere.
Excellent. Well, this sounds like a movie in the making. Have you been approached?
I have not been approached. Hollywood's not doing much right now.
No, that's
because
true.
of the COVID thing.
Right.
So it's,
It's affected a lot.
it would be really nice if something did happen.
Well, let's go back to your New Life Challenge as an art instructor. Tell us a little bit, and those students that are going to be watching the show, give us a little bit more of what that means to you as an instructor, just not someone standing up in front of a crowd. Because art, we say that art is from the heart, and that's a line from Dr. David Nayabetti here at the Lincoln University, one of the instructors. So, you want to?
I would. Well, I had Dr. James Tatum when I had art here.
Oh, I see.
He was the director of the
Yes.
art. Teaching art in school is tremendously rewarding. There's kind of a dichotomy in teaching art. There educators who are heavy on education and don't really know how to do all these techniques, how to master them, how to teach them.
Right.
And then there are the artists. And a lot of times we tend to be scatterbrained, and our creative side, our left brain, is active all the time.
Just running at high speed.
Absolutely. So you have to meet a happy medium.
And you become animated.
Well, you know me. I'm always animated.
In front of students, that's got to be, this guy excites me just with the animation, you know.
Here's what I promised him when we started.
Oh, excellent.
We will find some sort of medium that you can enjoy and that you can excel at. And that's what we set out to do every year.
Excellent. Now, what is that medium? Is that a choice for, is that a by vote?
I try to work through a very good selection of mediums. Mm-hmm. And like right now, we're working on stained glass panels on black paper with pastels.
Excellent.
So they design a church window, and they leave the black lines come through to represent the bezel in the stained glass.
I see.
And so we use different color schemes from the color wheel, and they learn about color theory, they learn about composition, they learn about balance, they learn all of the basics of
depth,
art.
What have you.
And you actually teach them the basics, having fun, and they don't feel like
they don't even realize it's a class.
Absolutely.
That's right. Well, Phil, that's excellent. So hang with us. We've got to take a break. So please make yourself comfortable while we look at these special messages. After the break, Mr. Jones will share with us the complete scope of completing a project, steps A through Z, and also some of his greatest works that I've been honored to present to you folks worldwide. There's a lot more on Spotlight on the Arts, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Talking to your kids about finishing school isn't easy, just necessary. Call 866-STUDIO or go to boostup.org for materials that can help.
Welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts. I continue with my special guest joining us for the second time here. That's Mr. Phil Jones of Jefferson City, Missouri. Well, Phil, before the break, oh my, what a segment. So much energy and dedication I hear and see from your interview so far. So you shared a lot of information. So let's continue along those lines and thought and expression, but take a really good look into the future. Please, if you can, take us on a project completion process from A to Z. We'll include photos to help identify that for the viewers. So I'll just turn it over to you and let you run with it.
Okay, the photographs that I provided for you that the audience will see are of the Abraham Lincoln bust that lives at the library, at the Page Library here on Lincoln campus. My process is pretty straightforward. I build on an armature, and I build on an armature because that creates the void inside. You cannot fire a solid piece of clay because it will explode and destroy your kiln and any other pieces in the kiln.
And for us learning, what's an armature?
An armature, let's just call it a wig head. And I've built them, and I reuse them over and over. And I built shoulders and everything on them to where if I want a full shoulder one, I have a full shoulder armature. If I want just a head, then I have just a head armature.
Okay.
And I start with soft, wet clay. I slice it with a guitar string. I finally found a way to recycle my used guitar strings.
Oh, yes.
So I cut my clay with them and put it on, scoring and slipping, using all the basic techniques of sound clay work. And first thing I do is cover the armature. That gives me my basic shape. If it's a human being, generally I start with the nose as the focal point, then work on the shape of the head to get the shape of the head right, and then set the ears so that I've got the basic construction of the head. Then I'll start with the eyes. I'll work from eye to back and forth from eye to eye. I'll start on the mouth, building the chin out to where I've kind of noticed I just kind of work in a circle. Looking at my reference point,
Yes.
I'll get that to where I think it needs to be at that part of development. I'll go to the next eye, then I'll check chin, mouth, and then I'll go to the nose. Then the hair is generally, when I get the face to where it's almost there, then I get the hairline and get that outline in so that it looks more like my reference point, and then I can start honing and getting it to where it actually is a portrait.
I see.
Then I have to walk away from it and let it set for about 8 hours to firm up because the clay's really soft at that point. I don't cover it or anything. That allows it to evaporate. Then I cut over the top of it across, generally either in front or behind the ears, pull it apart, and you'll have pictures in that I sent you of the whole process. Pull it apart. Then there are thick areas that are very thick where I've built up.
Oh, I see.
You can't be any thicker than a 1/2 inch or it's not going to fire. It'll explode. So I take a loop tool, hollow it out, and you'll see pictures of that. You'll see the clay that's actually come out. Then score and slip. Again, the simple principles of working with clay. Score it, then put slip, which is a very, very thin clay that you put mixed with water.
I see.
So that it'll fuse back together. Then you put it back together. Then you work it back together with your thumbs so that it's smooth and it has the original shape. At that point in time, it's about to the point to where it would be considered. It's not quite greenware yet because it's leather hard.
I see.
It will stand on its own then at that point. So then from that point, you got to let it dry a little bit. And as it dries, I nitpick them. I'll sit there and I've got them on a circular board, on a carousel board, and I can spin them and I can work on them and I can work on the little fine details once they're starting to dry with different grits of sandpaper, different gradations of steel wool to pull in all of the little nuances, the little
characteristics.
Absolutely, the little characteristics.
That person.
Forehead lines above the. It's.
Right.
That's when it really starts to come together as a piece.
And that's when you are really feeling like you're into it by that time for the finer points. That.
It's more enjoyable at that point.
Yes, that's what.
But every single step is important.
Sure.
You can't leave out a single one. So from that point, a lot of times, and I've perfected my process in that once I get it to where it's where I want it to be, then I'll set it on a drying rack that I have, which is basically just a graded TV stand.
I see.
And I'll set them on there, and I set fans underneath them and a fan beside it because airflow causes them to dry out much quicker. You want to get them to bone dry, which is no more moisture before you fire them. So I've learned that airflow directed to the inside and the outside to where it evenly dries
See.
can cut 2, 3, 4 days out of the drying process.
So that could be very important. Drying evenly.
Evenly is very important.
I see.
Because if the outside dries quicker than the inside, it shrinks as it dries. 11% is the amount of shrinkage from the time you put wet clay on to the time it's fired and out of the kiln.
Now, does that have to be considered when you're laying on the clay, that 11%?
Only if the commission requires an exact certain height,
I see. Okay.
width, or depth.
Excellent, excellent.
So
now-
once it's dry, then it goes in the kiln. Then that's a 24-hour process. It candles in heat, 185 degrees, for 12 hours with the downdraft, which is small holes in the lid and the floor of the kiln with a little fan that pulls a little bit of air down because the laws of thermodynamics, heat rises.
Yes.
So that keeps the temperature constant in the kiln as well as pulling out any of the gases and moisture that is left in there that is released.
Excellent.
So then after the 12 hours, it kicks in and it ramps up to the specified height. Then it kicks out, and then you'll let it cool. You take it out, and you've got a piece of bisque, bisque, bisqueware, and at that point, then it is fused. It's vitrified, and it's very hard, and you can't make any differences to the chain.
I see.
So at that point, it's the finish. Depending on whether I'm doing a full color, and in the pieces that you've got, you'll see the difference between full color and bronzed. Okay? I use a high quality latex paint after I use a commercial sealer to seal because it's very porous. So that keeps it from just soaking and soaking and soaking paint.
Right.
So I do all of the coloration. Then I overspray with, depending on whether they want a real glossy shine or a less glossy, a satin or a high gloss, high quality polyurethane, overspray with a UV protectant so that the color doesn't fade from the sunlight.
Right. Excellent, excellent. And our timeline will definitely give you an idea of the awesome, magnificent work that Phil is doing now. Well, commissions, what do we do? How do we get a hold of you, Phil?
Well, if you want to get a hold of me, I have an email address, jones.phil.0419@gmail. Most people know my cell phone number. I don't want to put it on here.
Okay.
I have a Facebook page, Phil Jones Sculptures. www.facebook.com/Phil Jones Sculptures. I have a website, www.philjonesSculptures.com.
All right.
I'm pretty visible, pretty easy to get a hold
Yes.
of.
Okay, now, we haven't mentioned that Phil also, or we did mention briefly, that Phil does dogs, those ones that's close to us that pass on. So your dog sculptures are magnificent also. So I want to throw that in. Have you any input on that?
I do custom patterns as well, which is a hollow portrait, just like I've told you before. But I insert a canopic jar on it, and then finish it off with plaster underneath, to where all you have to do is set it there. And I even have a sign company that prints labels that has the dog's name, date of birth, date of death. So when you get the ashes back, you can unscrew the lid, put the ashes in there, screw it up, and you got a portrait of your dog. You never have to say goodbye to your pet.
Excellent, excellent. Great. Now, is there anything we left out before we move on to the next question of how you would approach or inspire a person? Is there anything you'd like to cover that I might have missed?
The most important thing that I would tell somebody who would like to do art is you're never going to get any better until you try. And you're never, ever going to get to a level that you're satisfied with if you don't fail many times first.
Right.
I think it was Michael Jordan that said that he had missed over 10,000 and some odd free throws. And most people think of him just being deadly with free throws.
Yes, definitely.
And he points out that all of those misses were the ones that taught him how
Exactly.
to make them. And, you know, that's no different than anything you do in life.
So those bumps in the road you trip over, that's just a learning experience
Those are learning
to go on
experiences, absolutely.
and really perfect you as a human being, whether whatever you're trying to perfect to being a better human being or socializing with people, what have you. It's more or less a life lesson in arts as an example, I guess you could say.
And I'll tell you what, you can use your art to really further humanity. We had a boy at Calvary Lutheran High School
Yes.
that died in a car wreck in April.
Yes.
His name's Kelton Sellers, and I sent you a picture of that piece, and I'd
Yes.
really appreciate it if you'd include that.
I sure will.
When my son passed away, I did a bust for his
Yes.
funeral, and that sits on my piano. And I don't feel like I ever have to say goodbye to him. I can walk in, I can touch him, I can talk to him, I can see him every day. I never forget him, and I never remember how beautiful his face was. So Dennis and Tamara Sellers are good friends of mine, and I have their other son, Sam, in my art class, and I did a bust of Kelton after he passed away. And I actually, in my phone, I actually have the first family photo that they took after his death of the family with the bust.
Right. Now, you've shared that on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Twitter, Instagram,
Just
Facebook.
recently,
Yes,
you've completed this piece. So, you can you give out your Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, but I don't know what it is, so I'll have to email that to you so that you can do that.
Okay,
or you can catch it on your side and you can tell me.
And there will be a small reel of all the works. We're leaving time just for that few moments that we'll share all this artwork. I did want to bring up that you do other artwork other than sculpting. I know your linoleum blocks. I think you've got a couple of those in your photos. We'd like to talk about your other love of art pieces.
Every year at Calvary Lutheran High School, one thing that I'm big on is the arts all working together.
Yes.
So when the drama does a production, me and my art kids design the sets, and we get together on Saturdays, we paint them. One of the things that we do is the choir and the band do a Christmas concert every year. So my kids have a competition every year for the space at the cover, on the cover.
Oh.
So we always do a religious themed linoleum block project. And some of the stuff that the kids do is just absolutely amazing.
I can
And one of the pieces that I did to inspire them last year was the 50th anniversary of the Abbey Road Beatles album.
Yes.
And I actually did a linoleum block print of the cover of Abbey Road, and that was one of them that I sent you that you can kind of show what that's like. I also paint. There's a picture of Grandmaster H.U. Lee that hangs in the American Taekwondo Association's national headquarters and museum in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Super.
There's another picture that if you're a sculptor in Jefferson City, one of the coolest events that's ever happened in 1,000 lifetimes happened in the last couple of years. They took Ceres off the top of the Capitol.
Yes.
Lowered her down, and she had been, how many lightning strikes? She was green, everything else, and then a little over a year later, they brought her back, and she was so perfectly bronzed and glowing and everything else. So I did a painting of her coming down with, all of the straps, holding her as the crane was bringing her down with the flag flying. And I thought, I got a picture of that when it was happening, and I thought, what a cool painting that would be.
Yes.
So I finally got around to doing that painting, and I included that there.
Super. Oh, all right. Well, excellent. Well, we're about out of time. Do you have any closing words to the viewers worldwide now, as I say before? Thanks to YouTube.
I love art. Everybody can do something artistic. It helps you balance who you are by getting in touch with your right and your left brain. It makes you a more balanced person.
I agree.
I think that art makes my life much more worth living than a life without art.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you once again for contributing to Spotlight on the Arts. It's really been an inspiring visit with you once again, and a really informational experience for everyone, I'm sure. Do you have a farewell response?
Do art, get better, fail, and fail forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here once again. It's an honor.
You're very welcome.
Well, my thanks go out to JCTV producer Gloria Enlow and her crew, contributing here to Spotlight on the Arts and making it happen. It's we look forward again for the next couple shows, where we'll be looking at a rapper out of Kansas City, Missouri, AV, which has been on before, and a new member to the community, Karen Brooks. So that's going to be coming up in the next couple of shows. So look for more Spotlight on the Arts right here at JCTV Access. And don't forget YouTube. I'm Rick J. saying, see you next time.